And topic number 4 comes to us today from Edward Tucker, who writes, I know they're not everyone's favorite MCU movies, but I really like all the Thor movies so far, including Thor The Dark World. There was an interview with Chris Hemsworth today where he said he thought the movie was meh. Should he be saying things like that? And do you agree with him? All right, thanks a lot for the question, Edward. And I am like you, I like all the Thor movies, including Thor The Dark World, but I have always said Thor The Dark World was a big step down from the first Thor. I thought the first Thor was a much, much better film. I think Thor Ragnarok is a much better film. I still think there's enough merit in Thor The Dark World to enjoy, but even I will say it was a big step down. Number 1, should Chris Hemsworth be saying that one of his own films was meh? I feel okay with it. What I don't want, because what is not professional, is for an actor who got paid to be in and promote a movie to talk crap about a movie he has coming out now. That's not professional. But Thor The Dark World is now years ago. Another Thor movie has come out since then. I think it's perfectly acceptable and okay for a George Clooney to say, yeah, my Batman movie sucked. I think it's perfectly acceptable and fine at this point in time for Chris Hemsworth to go, yeah, Thor The Dark World was meh. I mean, I think that's perfectly fine. I think that was a tempered, measured response to a question, and I don't think there's anything to read into. He said, yeah, the second one was meh. I have no problem with that whatsoever. What is interesting, though, is there's a whole bunch of movie sites I like to read and enjoy. There's a lot of really great movie sites out there. And one of the sites that I like to read is a website called Cinema Blend. And I actually know a bunch of the people over there. So anyway, in the whole thing of this, Chris Hemsworth saying the second one was meh, Cinema Blend, I can't remember which author wrote this over there, but Cinema Blend wrote this article where they very interestingly pointed out that while Thor The Dark World may not be the best Thor movie, they made a really good argument for the importance of Thor The Dark World. Let me quote Cinema Blend here. Let me pull up this quote that they wrote, because I actually thought it was quite interesting what they said. They wrote this: Thor Ragnarok, actually what they meant to say is Thor The Dark World. I think that was a typo they put in there. But anyway, Thor The Dark World remains an essential film in the greater MCU canon, even if it's not the most beloved entry in said canon. The movie features the debut of the Reality Stone, making it a pivotal entry on the road to Avengers Infinity War. And, maybe more importantly, Loki's arc in this film is fundamental to the character that he becomes during later films. Let me read that again, because I think that's really important. Loki's arc in the film is fundamental to the character that he becomes during the later films in the overarching Marvel franchise. Thor The Dark World may not be the best film that Marvel Studios has ever given audiences, but to me, it still stands out as a fundamental stepping stone for those who want to understand the complete continuity of this superhero landscape and what it all means in the grand scheme of things. Once again, that comes from the website Cinema Blend. And I gotta tell you, I thought that was a really good thought. I thought that was a really interesting thought, because even I, who am a big Thor fan, I often think of Thor The Dark World and then just kind of brush it away. I don't really give the film that much consideration. It's a throwaway film to me. I got enough enjoyment out of it, but it's kind of a throwaway thing. And I really think that article brings up a couple of very, very good points. Number one, its place in the footsteps leading up to Avengers Infinity War. If there is no Thor The Dark World, there is no Infinity War, because it's what introduced us to the Reality Stone. But I really like what they point out is that Thor The Dark World really was the turning point for Loki. You know, up until that point, Loki was a multi-dimensional character, but more the bad guy, you know? It's in Thor The Dark World that they do an awful lot of character work on him. Like, I still remember one of my favorite scenes in Thor The Dark World, and actually probably one of my favorite scenes in the MCU. One of my favorite scenes in all the MCU. Loki, who despite all of his charm and charisma, is not somebody you want to F with. You don't want to screw with Loki, right? There's a reason that everybody considers him a global threat. Anyway, There's this great scene that I loved in Thor The Dark World, and there's not many that I loved in that movie, but this one I did. Loki is in his cell on Asgard, and he gets word that they killed his mother. His adopted mother, but his mother nonetheless. Tom Hiddleston's performance in that one scene said more about the multi-layered nature of the Loki character than anything else in the MCU. Because at his heart, despite his anger and rage, he loved his mother. And he, as we saw in the first Thor, he actually loved his father. Adopted father, but father nonetheless. In the All-Father, right? So, and the rage. And I just remember watching the movie going, oh my God, I would not want to be the one who killed Loki's mother. Because that rage, to me, it was the best scene of Thor The Dark World. Not a lot of other big highlights, but it was the best scene. And in reading this article, it just reminded me of that big thing, that movie, probably the biggest contribution that movie made to the overall MCU, it was an important one. Yes, the introduction of the Reality Stone, but it was the turning point for our understanding of the Loki character. And I think they're absolutely right for that. That is a big contribution this film made, and we shouldn't forget it. All right. Let's move on to the final email topic of the day. And the final email